Hi there. Today I'm going to be talking to you about playing through a jazz turnaround, how to keep track of where you are, and how to generate melodic content. My name's Graeme Norris. I teach saxophone and improvisation here at Jazz Music Institute in Brisbane, and here at the Institute we're striving to create a world where everyone can play jazz. Today's talk is about playing through a jazz turnaround or a jazz chord progression. Specifically speaking, using jazz parlance, I'm going to be talking about the chord progression that contains the chords 1, 6, 2, 5. This is a chord progression that is found in a song called I Got Rhythm, and it's a very famous progression in that song and in many other songs. So that's why I've chosen to speak about it today. So basically, when I say 1, 6, 2, 5, I'm talking about a progression that sounds like this. So what I'm doing there is I'm playing in the key on the saxophone, I'm playing C, A, D, and G. So in concert pitch, those notes are B flat, G, C, and F. This progression is referred to as a 1, 6, 2, 5 progression because those root notes I played a C, which is number 1 in the key of C. Then I played an A, which is number 6 in the key of C. I then played a D, which is number 2 in the key of C. I then played a G, which is number 5 in the key of C. Consequently, it's referred to as a 1, 6, 2, 5 progression. It's all in the one key, but the bass movement is through those notes that I just referred to. This particular progression is also found in songs like that's a song called Polka Dots and Moonbeams, and that is in the key of F concert. And the phrase I just played then is a melodic phrase played over 1, 6, 2, 5 in the key of F concert. Another one. That's a song called Time After Time, and that is in the key of E flat concert. And that melodic phrase is played over 1, 6, 2, 5 in the key of E flat concert. So it's not just limited to one key. It is a universal jazz turnaround progression in many, many songs. So I think it's a good place to start talking about jazz vocabulary and melodic content and how to interpret it. So I will get into that a little down the track. To start with, it's my experience as a player and also as a teacher that many jazz musicians, many jazz students have some sort of trouble keeping track of where they are. I can remember when I started playing this music, I used to get lost all the time. And so one of my early teachers introduced me to a technique that I have found very helpful. So the best thing to do is, if you are aware that you have an issue with keeping track of where you are, and a lot of people do, put on some recordings. So for, pertaining to today's class, put on a recording of someone playing I Got Rhythm, or someone playing a song like Lester Leaps In by Lester Young, which is also over the 1, 6, 2, 5 progression. Oleo by Sonny Rollins is also over the 1, 6, 2, 5 progression. And just as the song is being played, say the chords out loud. Don't play your instrument. So if I'm listening to a song, if I'm listening to Lester Leaps In, for instance, there's plenty of versions online. Get something about It goes ba-da-ba, ba, 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 ba-da-da, ba, ba. That's the melody over 1, 6, 2, 5. And so while you're listening to it, just go 1, 6, 2, 5. 1, 6, 2, 5. And when you start getting a handle on that, say the notes. B flat, G, C, F. B flat, G, C, F. And if you do this sort of regularly, and it's the sort of thing you can do late at night when you can't make too much noise, if you do this, what it did for me was it gave me the sense that this is actually not moving by as quickly as what it feels like when you're on stage and you're giving a performance. Because sometimes when you're on stage, you can get nervous or something, and it feels like things are moving by very quickly. But if you do it, in your own space, without pressure and just listening, then it really does give you that sense of, okay, this is moving by at a reasonable tempo. It's not moving by very quickly. And your brain starts to click in, and your brain starts to be aware of what you want it to do. So if you can start practicing that, what I'm about to talk about will become easier. So the 1, 6, 2, 5 progression. Basically what we're talking about when we say that is a diatonic progression, meaning initially it's all in the same key. It's all in the one key. So if I play C major on the saxophone, if I play that same scale from the 6th note of that scale, which is A, it's the same notes, but it's now a minor scale. I realise some of this information may be a little ahead of where some of you are, but if you can do what I just did, then you'll get a better understanding of what I'm talking about. So in the 1, 6, 2, 5 progression, we have the 1, which is a major, the 6, which is minor, the 2, which is minor, and the 5, which is a dominant chord. But I'm not changing any of the notes that I'm using. I'm just starting the scale from different degrees. So let me do that again, just playing the root notes. Now if I play the 3rd of each of those chords as well as the root note, then I'll end up with this. So now I'm playing 1, 3 of each of those chords. And once again, if you can sit in front of a piano and do this, it's very helpful, or if you can do it on your own instrument. If you do it a bit, it will make sense if it doesn't make sense to you at the moment. A very interesting point about what I just did, at least I think it's very interesting, is by playing those notes, I have played every note of that scale. Just by playing the 1st and the 3rd of each of those chords, I have played the original scale. So on the saxophone, I have played a full scale, a C major scale, but I've just done it in a way that is not the traditional way of playing it. So with this, what I'm talking about here, I like to refer to it as a bucket of notes. It's just a key signature. But you can play it however you wish. You can arrange it however you wish. So, having listened to my recordings and kept track of where I am and maybe try and visualize the notes while I'm doing that, I can now start thinking about rhythm and placement. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just playing 1 and 3 of each of those chords, but I'm just putting it together rhythmically and in a way that I find pleasing in that moment, just to try and make music. So this is a good way of getting through that chord progression to start with. And the song that I mentioned a minute ago, Lester Leaps In. That song uses 1, 3, 5, and 6 in the original key. So we're not using any crazy notes here. It's all fairly obvious and stated in the original material. The tune is telling you what to play. The song that I started this video with, if you can cast your mind back there or listen to it again, that's a song called Stuffy, composed by the great tenor saxophone player Coleman Hawkins, and that contains 3, 6, 5, 1. You know, that original phrase. It's got a leading tone to the 3, but, so you don't need a lot of complex material to be able to create good music. You combine these melodies, borrow from them, place the notes differently, use basic chord material, and you will be able to create some pretty good sounding music just by these basic tools and this basic information. I mean, music is complex, but it is logical. So we've taken 2 steps here. We've talked about how to keep track of where you are, and we've talked about how to generate some melodic material using information that you are given through specifically this 1, 6, 2, 5 progression. So I'm going to end this tutorial just by talking about the processes involved in generating some more perhaps interesting, less obvious melodic material. Because, personal experience again, I practice rhythm changes a lot. I practice 1, 6, 2, 5 a lot. And I do that because I find it difficult, because to me the 1, 6, 2, 5 progression is like a blank canvas. Yes, I'm given information, but because it's all diatonic, it requires me to generate more interesting material. Like if I'm playing a song like On the Sunny Side of the Street, for instance, the harmony is pretty well spelled out for me. And so I sort of follow that harmony, I can create nice melodies just following that harmony. But with 1, 6, 2, 5, it's sort of like painting a picture with one colour, and so you want to try and use processes that are not too far out or complex to try and generate some more interesting sounds. So, for me, I wanted to try and do something more interesting on the 2nd chord, the 6th chord. Because if I play the 1 chord, so I'm going to play a C major triad on the saxophone. And now I'm going to play an A minor triad on the saxophone. And that was a combination of the 2. And they're fairly similar. It's a nice melody, but they are fairly similar. So, what can I do on that 6th chord to make it a little more interesting? So what I did was, I thought about transcriptions that I've done in the past, and it's a minor chord, so I thought, what do I know about how to navigate or play through a minor chord? And one of the most common phrases is on a minor chord, and the most common minor chords are 2 chords. So once again, if this is a little bit more advanced than where you're used to, I'll try and be as clear as I can. But the most common and the most regular experience we have with minor chords as jazz musicians is in a 2-5-1 progression. The 2 chord is a minor chord. And quite often you'll hear this phrase. That's playing through a 2-5-1 progression. So on the minor chord, you're hearing this sort of thing, which is the 2nd note, the 3rd note, and the major 7th of that minor chord. So I thought, okay, on the 6th chord, it's not a 2 chord, but maybe I can just play what you would on a 2 chord on the 6th chord. And this is what we do in music, you know. There are guidelines, but there are also ambiguities. But those ambiguities create opportunities for melodic invention and creation. So, on the 6th chord, I'm going to play the same phrase I would on a 2 chord. So now I'm going to play 1, 6, 2, 5, but I'm going to use that phrase on the 6th chord, not on the 2 chord. I'll do that again, slower. So I'm playing obvious notes on the 1 chord, I'm playing obvious notes on the 2 chord, I'm playing obvious notes on the 5 chord. But on the 6th chord, I'm playing notes that are less obvious. Or in a different version of the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. So really what I've done there by playing notes that are less obvious on the 6th chord is I've just generated a little bit of tension, and then when I move to the 2 chord, I'm releasing that tension. So another way of thinking about it is I pose a question, and then when I go to the 2 chord, I answer that question. Or I make a call on the 6th chord, and then I get a response when I go to the 2 chord. So this is something that goes way back to the very beginnings of jazz. Louis Armstrong, Coleman Hawkins, Duke Ellington. The idea of question and answer and call and response. So by employing practices that I've learned through transcriptions and through listening, I can generate more interesting melodic content. Now, in each solo that you take, the whole solo is not going to be all diatonic, hopefully, and it's also not going to be all complex. You need a combination of both of those things. So, by thinking diatonically, by thinking of obvious chord tones, and also by thinking of little things you can do to create more interest, the whole solo, the whole improvisation will be more satisfying for yourself, your band members, and the audience. Thanks for your attention today. I hope there are some things in this video tutorial that you gain benefit from, you find helpful and useful as you progress on your journey as a jazz musician. If you'd like to leave us a comment and let us know what you think, that would be great. And we'll leave it there. Thanks again. See you next time.